Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh. Is it already Sunday, August 9th, 2020? Can we just do a redo, a do-over of this year already and get it behind us? Hang in there, everybody. I hope everyone is having a blessed Sunday, August 9th. I have lit a lot of candles and said a lot of prayers for a lot of people this week. No one actually specifically requested that I mention them at the start of the show. So I have decided to do tonight's opening prayer and candle lighting for all of you, my ministry family, because I love you all and you all have been so supportive over me. I even went out and got a wonderful little antique candle holder for you guys with a traditional religious votive candle in there. And I will light your guys' candle for you, and that will burn until it is done burning. And after it'll sit here with me until the show's over, then I will put it where I put all the other candles on display. Guys, this is a very powerful prayer of protection and authority. If you want to receive some of the good vibe from it or add some positive vibe to it, just reach out, touch your computer screen, and close your eyes, bow your head, observe a moment of silence while I say the prayer, and let's get a nice prayer circle going here. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. In his name, and by his power of his cross and blood, I ask Jesus to bind any evil spirits, forces, and powers of the earth, air, fire, or water, of the netherworld, and the satanic forces of nature. By the power of the Holy Spirit and by his authority, I ask Jesus Christ to break any curses, hexes, or spells, and then send them back to where they came from, if it be his holy will. I beseech thee, Lord Jesus, to protect us by pouring thy precious blood on us, my ministry, my paranormal ministry family, which thou hast shed for us. And I ask thee to command that any departing spirits leave quietly, without disturbance, and go straight to thy cross to dispose of as thou seest fit. I ask thee to bind any demonic interaction, interplay, or communications. I place all within the sound of my voice under the protection of the blood of Jesus Christ, which he shed for all of us. Amen. That prayer reminds me of a couple of things. Some good has come out of the pandemic for me. Because I haven't been able to get out and actually physically work a lot of cases. My counseling skills have gotten better. God bless. Clients are learning more and more how to put up a fight, draw their line in the sand, and put up a fight against these dark, malevolent forces that have invaded their family and their home and their life. Because all of you, if you don't know it already, I've preached it. All of you are the only ones that really have the power to take your life back. I can just help you draw that line in the sand, put my arm around you, and help you stand up against the bully. But it's up to you. I don't have any magic powers. So it's up to you to put up a good fight. Flip side of that coin, I'm very disturbed of all the names that have been sent to me. And I understand a lot of us in the clergy can't get out there. But I'm hearing more and more and getting more and more names sent to me of people that are advertising to do exorcism and deliverance via Skype, Zoom, Facebook Live, or over the phone, exorcism. For the record, trust me, I promise you that cannot be done. So if you reach out to anybody like me for help and they say that they can do that for you over the internet or over the phone, hang up and reach out to somebody else because that cannot be done. All right, having said that, welcome, brothers and sisters. This is Reverend Sean's Paranormal Ministry. I'm your host, Reverend Sean the Rev. Welcome to my haunted home. And real quick before I bring on my very special guest, and I'm so excited to have her here, and I know that's why you all tuned in anyway. Go to my website, ghostbegone.biz, the ministry right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Everything you need to know about the Rev is there. While you're there visiting, remember that my wife Sharon and I do not charge for our ministry work, helping people with their paranormal issues. So if you notice the button and you're able to do so, send in a small donation. I promise you it will be appreciated from the bottom of our hearts, and it will be put to good use, I assure you. Look at the page Spiritual Advisor. In addition to being an ordained exorcist, I am also a certified spiritual advisor, intuitive coach. If you have issues of a spiritual nature not attached to the paranormal and you would like to make an appointment to speak with me, you can do that there. There's also a page called the WSE course/book. I am the founder of the Worldwide Society of Exorcists, and I offer a 12-week college-level course, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare, through the WSE. And if you've ever felt a calling to the deliverance ministry, and no, I'm not going to train you on how to be an exorcist. I'm just going to give you the knowledge to be able to help people fight the darkness. All my graduates in this course get a stunning diploma suited for framing, along with some very special blessed parting gifts from yours truly that you can only get from the Rev. So if you've ever had the feeling to learn more about the deliverance ministry, enroll in the course there on that page. You'll also notice on that page my new haunted autobiography, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry. A true story inspired by spirit and divine intervention. And I quote, the scariest book I ever published. That was Annette Munich, owner and publisher of Stellium Books, my publisher. Sometimes, brothers and sisters, it takes something scary to fight something even scarier. Help me continue to fight children's cancer in 2020. Part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my book goes to support stjude.org and St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Nevada, and that is a beautiful thing. If you've already purchased my book, God bless you. You're a part of that support group, so thank you. All right. My producer, Carl Albertson of Paranormal Nation Radio, is manning the chat. So if you have a comment for me or my guest, or a question for me or my guest, put it right there in the comments. Make some friends. We're all family here. We will try to get to your questions as quickly as we can. Carl will post them on the screen for me. That's what the chat is for. Jump in there, make some friends. Let us know you're here. All right, guys, without further ado, she's a friend, and I'm so happy that she's here. You all know her. You all love her. She is an author. She is also AKA American Witch. She's also a psychic medium. Very talented, very passionate woman. You all are going to love her by the time this show is over, if you don't already love her. Brothers and sisters, please welcome to the show the one and only Melissa Saint-Hilaire. Melissa, are you there?
Hi.
There you are. There you are. How are you?
I'm great. Can I just say thank you so much for pronouncing my last name correctly? Because that rarely ever happens. You would not believe the weirdo pronunciations I get. Yeah, wow. So I'm really thankful.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm really into that. I bore people to death with the Ancestry.com stuff. That was one of the first things I noticed about you when I started stalking you, was how interesting of a last name you have, Saint-Hilaire. What's the ancestry and background on that?
Well, from what I've been told, there was a bishop, Saint-Hilaire, who traveled around France and many, many, many years ago, and would teach the local villagers things about hygiene and the medicine that they had at the time and how to get fresh water and things like that. And I guess he traveled from village to village and taught them all. And from what I understand, a lot of these villages took on his name and for themselves, their own last names. And they also sometimes changed the name of the town to that last name, all in honor of him and what he had done for those people. So it's I don't know, it's kind of a cool legacy, I think.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. And who knows, we may be a little related too. Back in the day, there was a knight with the last name of uh, oh my gosh, LaFleming, who actually, we don't know for sure if he was a member of the Knights Templar. He was a member of some religious sect, Knight Templar like, but he left the country um, supposedly with a lot of religious relics in his possession, and he made it to Scotland, and he started Clan Douglas, and Clan Douglas had a offshoot of their family that became Whittingham, and then Whittingham migrated south into England and became Whittington, and the rest is history. But so we both have a little bit of that French in us, and yeah, I love all of that stuff. Have you ever done the whole ancestry.com on your history?
I have. I've tried. It gets a little confusing. I have a very weird and varied ancestry. So it's like I'm kind of a mutt. Like there's a lot of different things in there. I know that I've traced on the English side of my family. We've gone back to like a long time ago, like around, I think even before the Pilgrims, like a long time ago.
Wow.
But I'm not 100% sure on the timeline, but because there were several William Cheneys who came over from England. They left because they didn't want to change their religion. So, and they said they were going to, if they didn't change their religion, they were going to take their land and all their money. So they're like, all right, well, we're out of here. And then they came here. But for the French side, it gets a little confusing. And there's like other names that pop in there, like de Guerin. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I found out that was kind of interesting when I went to France last year, there is an abbey there, Saint-Hilaire Abbey. And this is like in the French wine country. And now I don't know how much of this is true. So I could be like passing on information that someone told me that was not true. But from what I understand, the Saint-Hilaire's had something to do with inventing the sparkling wine there, the champagne there.
Wow.
And there was some split at some point, and then when it split off, the split became Dom Perignon or something like that. And
wow.
Yeah, and they took the Saint-Hilaire recipe and became that. So I don't know. I have no idea if that's actually true, but I think it's kind of an interesting story.
Oh my gosh, it's a wonderful story. Do me a favor, if you continue to do your research on that and you come up with new things, let me know what you come up with, because I find all really, and it doesn't have to be my family, I find all that stuff so interesting because it just is, it's the coolest thing, and so many people are just not, could care less. You gotta know of your ancestry, or
you really do. And I find it super fascinating. So like several months ago, well before the pandemic happened, a dear friend of mine, Patty Negri, and Sheena Metal, both of them, they were doing a seance. And during the seance, they kept getting this name. They were like, oh, we're getting a Willem, a Willem. Is anyone here at the table related to a Willem? And I'm like, I didn't pay to be there. I'm just a friend. I was just kind of hanging out. So I didn't want to like insert myself too much, and I have a tendency, like, cause I host my own seances, and I can have a tendency to accidentally like take over a room.
Yeah.
So I had I was kind of like, canceling myself out. But Patty kept going, I'm getting a Willem, and then she keeps looking at me, and I'm like, oh no, is this one of my ancestors? And so I'm like, it could be me. I'm like, I had, I've got a lot of Williams in my, ancestry. And I know that the English, when they first came over to Massachusetts, which is where I'm from, they would pronounce words a little bit differently. So they might say, like, instead of Elm Street, they would say Elm Street, or they would say instead of film. And so William could easily become Willem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I was like, it could be me because of this. And then she went on to say, well, this particular Willem was hung in the 1600s during the Salem witch trials, not in Salem, but during the same time period. And I was like, it can't be me. I don't know of any ancestors that was hung. I mean, that's crazy. So I go home, I get on the phone. I'm like, Mom, like, listen to this crazy thing that happened during the seance. And she's like, oh, yeah. Oh, no, that happened. Yeah. There was a William that was hung during the 1600s in our ancestry. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Like, I'm in my 40s and I'm just now learning this. Like,
Yeah.
what is happening?
Oh my! Thank goodness for Mom. You know,
Right?
that is so cool. You're from that area, and it seems like I have a lot of friends. People ask me all the time. You know, Reb, you have all kinds of friends, pagans, witches, uh, and a lot of my friends that are clergy don't really get on me too much about it. But I notice a lot of them don't really have friends that are witches and pagans and all that. But you know, I've been in the paranormal field for I'm 60 now. I've been in the paranormal field since like 10. So, I mean, you make a lot of friends along the way. And if somebody is of good heart, good spirit, they haven't perverted their gift and they come from love and light, that's all that matters. I don't judge anybody. But that whole area, it seems to breed you guys. And I think that's really, really cool. Just recently they had an anniversary of a bunch of the women that were falsely accused and hung. When you were living back there, did you take part in celebrations for all of those types of anniversaries? Was that a big deal or not?
Well, you know, oddly enough, I don't recall actually taking part of an anniversary celebration, though I'm sure in Salem proper, you know, that and actually a lot of this actually didn't even take place in Salem. It took place in Danvers. So there's but regardless, I'm sure it takes place there, you know, specifically every year. But I wasn't really part of that growing up, but just the fact that you knew, like, if you grew up anywhere near Salem, you were influenced by it. You couldn't help
Yeah.
but be influenced by it, you know, and it would come up all the time. And like, I mean, I was 12 years old when I got my first tarot deck, you know, and I got my first book on, you know, Wicca. And every little girl that I know, and I guess little boys too, but my male friends didn't really talk about it as much, but all of my girlfriends, everybody were like, wanted to be witches. We just thought it was cool, you know? Um, and I'm fairly certain it's all because of Salem.
Absolutely. You know, great, great area back there. I bet you the Halloweens are
Oh my
just,
God.
yeah,
It's like I'm super sad about this year because I try to go back to Massachusetts every October because
really.
Salem in October cannot actually the entirety of New England in October can't be beat, you know, because I mean for Salem the entire month is basically a celebration, you know, and they have parades and all kinds of things. But just, you know, being in New England, there's just something, you know, the leaves are changing colors and you've got the pumpkins and there's just something about it that is like extra Halloweeny, you know, and
Yeah,
and you get
yeah.
cool crisp in the air and that smell. There's like a smell to autumn there that is just, I mean, just thinking about it, I'm like, oh, damn it, I want to be able to fly back in October.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mentioned earlier the opening monologue, if we could just do a redo or a do over of this whole year. Oh my gosh.
Well, here's the thing though,
Uh,
that, like on one hand, I agree. I mean, there's certain things that I don't want to get too political, but there are certain things that I would definitely change that has happened, you know.
mm,
Um, and I, you know, I would love to roll back the clock and save tons and tons of lives because to me that's the most tragic thing about all of this. But in a weird way, because I'm one of those people, even in the most darkest, horrible times, I'm constantly looking for the silver lining in things. It's just the way my brain is wired. And what I'm seeing now, like, is this paradigm shift and this realization of needing to do better for people, you know, and needing to, you know, this has forced us to see the systems that don't work and the systems that crumble and fall apart. And it sucks and it's terrible. And if I could wave a magic wand and make everything better, I would. But at least we're seeing what doesn't work. And my hope, my greatest hope, is that we can fix these things and move forward and make a better world for everybody. So that's the only good thing I can possibly even see coming from all of this.
oh my gosh, well said. I've mentioned this on the show before that I am in contact with like a worldwide network of exorcists, and we do this thing where there's 3 or 4 special prayers that we do every night and again every morning, and collectively we're trying to push back this darkness. In your being a witch, and I don't know if you have a coven or not, or if a member of one. Do you also, in your what you do you get together with a group and do the same type of for lack of a better term, a prayer type thing or meditation type thing to try and right what is wrong, try to put things, you know, back in place, to try and push the darkness back?
Early on, when it first started in like March and April and maybe into May, that seemed, I was involved with a lot of different groups that did that. And I know of a lot of different groups that have done that and continue to do that. I'm currently not involved with any of them right now. I've just been kind of doing, I'm in a weird solitary place right now. And I think it's just like, I think it's just born of, you know, everything that's happening, where sometimes we have to sort of like shut down from the outside world and kind of go into our own little space and work on ourselves to help the world, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
And
Absolutely.
in that, you know, I'm still, I was just going to pull my white candle out, but oh, it's over there. It's too far away. But I have a white candle that I've been lighting every day, just, and it's, the whole point of it is just to send out love and light and healing to everybody. And I know there's a lot of people that make fun of the love and light thing and so on and so forth, but
it is what it is.
It is what it is. And the world needs both. The world needs a balance of everything. So, you know, and part of it for me is not just, you know, because part of it is healing everyone, obviously, who's had to deal with the virus very specifically. But it's for me, it's more than that. It's also sort of like to heal people emotionally and mentally, and what we're all going through dealing with this, losing our loved ones to this, you know, losing our lives, our livelihoods, you know, and our connections, you know. And I think the biggest thing for one of the biggest things that I've noticed in this whole time period is how badly we need each other, how badly we need live in. I mean, this is great. And I love that we are able to communicate via screens, and it's wonderful that we can use technology in this way. But man, I miss people. You know, like I miss throwing seances in my living room and having, you know, 10 people come over and we sit around and we have an amazing experience, and then afterwards talk about it and hug each other and cry and whatever, you know. And I miss that energetic exchange, you know. And I feel like we've all sort of learned that, you know, we've spent so much. I'm just going to pull my phone out because I want to show you something. This is how many of us have spent the last several years. Right? Like, out in public, we're in line at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And
the world's passing them by.
Totally, you know, and like, and I think what this is forcing us to realize is that's not really living, you know, being like in your phone constantly and like hiding. And I'm an introvert and an empath. I hide all the time because I'm always like getting inundated with energy. But, you know, what I miss just like meeting people and talking and having these experiences. And I feel like we've all kind of figured this out, you know, and I'm hoping that someday when we're allowed to resume life as close to normal as possible, that people will talk more, you know?
Absolutely. Well, isolation breeds fear and anger, you know, so it just feeds on itself. Well, the one good thing I noticed about you being into your solitary thing that you do, if this, and I've been stalking you, so I've seen some cool things. If this whole American witch thing doesn't work out on you, you have quite the future in landscaping and kitchen remodeling.
I know, I've been going bananas with that. Like, when I first bought this house 4 years ago, there was like nothing in the yard. It was, it was kind of sad. And having grown up on a farm, I need greenery around me. Like I grew up, I had a giant cornfield next to my house that I could run through and visit my grandmother. And on the other side, I had a forest. And I would go for these walks. My grandmother would take these walks down the lane, and we'd have these magical experiences. And I'm just going to go off on a tiny tangent for a second.
It's okay.
Because like, so where I grew up in Massachusetts was, there were, you know, many different types of people have lived there for over many years. And so it's just rich with energy and spirit activity. And of course, when I was little, I didn't understand any of this stuff. I had no idea. I would just know that my grandma would take me for these long walks, and we'd be like deep in the forest. And there was this one area where sometimes a pond would form after a rainfall, and it would sort of cut off the path a little bit. So we would stop there and have a little picnic or what have you. And there was this big giant boulder there. And she would tell me that if I went up to the boulder and I put my ear on the boulder, that I could hear the spirits of the people who had lived there before us.
Wow.
And I would do it and I could hear them, you know, and it never occurred to me that that would be weird to some people. And, you know, she never used terms like psychic or medium or witch. You know, she was a Protestant and, you know, and read the Bible and things like that. And she never really talked about, use those other words, but it's clear to me now that she was absolutely all those things, you know?
Absolutely.
But anyway, to get back to to the greenery and everything, I think because I grew up in that environment, I crave it, you know. And so when we finally bought a house, I was like, oh my gosh, I've lived in an apartment for 18 years. I can finally have plants that actually go into the ground and not just into pots and then die after a little while, or the cats eat them all. So I kind of went bananas planning all these little things and making this little oasis in my house. And now it's like, it's so cool. It feels like people come over and they're like, there's fairies here, you know, because it has like a sparkly energy to it.
Mm-hmm. I believe in all of that. I'm telling you, I've had my own, even here in Las Vegas, I've had my own run-ins with the elementals here at my house. It's a crazy world on the other side of the veil. We're blessed to be able to have been given the ability to see and feel and experience a little bit of that. I wish everybody could. I remember reading somewhere where you referred to yourself as a nature witch. And when I first read that, the first thing that popped into my head was the indigenous people, holy people that I've met, some that I've worked with, some that I've reached out to me for help, which just blows my mind. I'm so humbled. I'm like, I'm not on your level. I know what true holy people of an indigenous tribe, are capable of. But, and like for me, when I hear of people, other clergy, maybe misusing what we do a little bit, like I was talking about the online exorcisms and over the phone exorcisms, it just really hurts my feelings and makes me feel sad. I don't want to go out and call anybody out or punch anybody in the face or anything like that, but it's sad. It doesn't make us as a whole look good. Two-part question here. One, is Nature Witch similar to what an indigenous holy person's practices would be like? And how do you feel when you hear of witches perverting what it is you guys do into an ugly practice?
Good questions. I wouldn't want to say that saying I'm a nature witch is tied specifically to any indigenous practices or religions, because from my perspective, I want to respect their practices, and and there's a lot of closed practices in various systems and traditions, and so for me, I have so much respect for that I don't want to cross contaminate. I'm sure that there are a lot of crossovers, though. They're just by happenstance, because when you sort of stumble on truths, you find them throughout various cultures. You know, there are, you know, you look at Buddhism and there's links there to witchcraft, you know. So there's, you know, it's going to happen. But when I talk about nature witch, I kind of use it somewhat a little bit synonymous with being born a witch a little bit, but it's more just that I feel whole in nature. You know, there's something that happens to me when I am out in a forest or on a beach or in water, or, you know, even in the middle of the desert in Joshua trees staring up at the stars. You know, yeah. There's this transformation of spirit that occurs for me, and I just feel like totally connected with the earth and with all humanity and all living creatures and animals and insects and everything, you know. And it's sort of like a sense of being centered and grounded and connected. And so I guess that's a little bit why nature witch. Also, I have a green thumb. I can strangely grow just about anything. I think the only thing that I tried to grow that wouldn't grow was belladonna. And maybe that was divine intervention. Maybe I wasn't supposed to grow belladonna. But yeah, so I think that's a little bit nature witch for me. Also, I love working with herbs and tinctures and things like that. I'm not as learned with it as some of my friends. I have this one friend named Natalie she is like full blown nature witch. This girl can do anything with tinctures and herbs. She's just amazing. I'm not quite at her level, but it's sort of my thing. I make these, I grow lavender in my backyard.
Wow.
I have this incredible affinity for lavender and all things.
Oh, your backyard must smell wonderful.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's amazing. I also have jasmine out there. So between the jasmine and the lavender, it's like heaven.
That's like constant, natural, without you having to raise a finger, constant smudging and cleansing of your whole area. Just exactly. Having that grow back there.
Totally. And so what I do is, and it grows like crazy. It loves the climate here. So what I do is I'll snip some of it. And I started just doing it for myself. I was like, I've got all this lavender. Like, what if I just, you know, I have to cut it back anyway. So what if I just wrap it and, you know, make a smoke cleanse bundle with it, you know? And so I did that, and it smelled delicious. And so I started using it in seances.
What would you charge me to make me a bundle? You can get back to me with a price later.
I will. Yeah, I'll get back.
I would love you to make me oh my gosh, please. I'm serious. I would love you to make me a bundle of that. And I will use it in a heartbeat when it arrives here because I do that sort of stuff. I've backed off on it. The wife's not crazy about the smell of stuff. I'm into all the incenses and stuff, so I try not to smoke her out too bad and have the constantly do it. But I'm into the incenses and the sweet grass and the white sage and all of that stuff. We have scented candles in the home, but sometimes I can tend to get a little crazy with it. And you know, you walk into my house, you feel like you've walked into somebody's tent in the Middle East. I'm gonna get hate mail for that, but it's just I'm capable of really smogging out or smoking out my home, and that can be a bit much for my dogs and my wife. But I would use one of your bundles in a heartbeat.
You know, my favorite thing. It's funny because as we're talking and I'm staring at your collar and your crosses. When one of my grandmas, my other grandmother is Catholic, and so when I was little, I was taken to mass quite often, and she tried really, really hard to convert me. But one of my earliest memories is frankincense and myrrh in those things. I even have one somewhere behind. I don't know if you can see it, but up here I have one of the.
Oh yeah, incense burner.
Yeah, and so that to this day, one of my favorite things is burning frankincense and myrrh. And I can't do it too much. And if I do it, I have to have all the windows open because I do have cats, and it's not good for animals. So I make sure, so I make sure I have a fan going and have the windows open so that they don't get sick. And I don't do it that often, but every once in a while, and I just feel like I need to cleanse the space on a deeper level, I will do that. and just amazing. It just lifts my spirits instantly. I love it.
Yeah, I'm into all of that stuff. I forgot to ask you probably the most important question at the beginning of the show. How are you and your family doing? Is everybody okay? Everybody's healthy? Nobody got the sickness or in the hospital or anything?
Thankfully, yeah, thankfully, as far as I'm aware, everyone is healthy and doing well. My mom was sick a little bit ago, about I don't know, like a month ago, and I was all freaked out and nervous, and she's in Massachusetts, and so that made it even more tense for me. Turned out to be just a sinus infection, thank goodness.
Oh, thank God.
Um, but yeah, I've been we've been now I have to knock on wood because I am a witch, so
I knock on wood too.
but yeah, thankfully we've all been fairly, faring fairly well, health wise. Financially, everybody is struggling. Financially is the biggest struggle. We're just having to pinch pennies and things like that. But it's okay. I think I feel like the biggest toll on this, at least for my loved ones, has been emotional health.
Absolutely.
Because that's super hard, and it's like I was supposed to visit my mom in June, and we were going to go to Italy. It was like a whole thing, and of course that had to go away. And the Italy part would be great, but what's more important is my mom, and like I miss her, and I wish I could go see her right now. Same with my dad. Like I wish I could just hop on a plane and be there and have everything be like not a problem. So I think if anything, that's the thing that we're like all sort of suffering the most from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I better look at my notes here because you've gotten so actually as soon as I posted that you were going to be on the show, and it happens with most everybody, uh, people that follow you start sending me notes. Ask her this, ask her that, and I don't want your fans to get upset with me. One fan wants to know gift by birth and blood and ancestral, or did you realize later in life it's more of just your gift?
Great question. Whoever asked that's a great question. This is a gift by birth, 100%. It took me a while to figure that out, though, honestly, because both sides of my family are kind of strangely super shy about keeping about their gifts. I know that I had let's see, what he was my grandmother's brother, so my great uncle was institutionalized. Back in the days when they did like frontal lobotomies and horrible things like that. And there's like conflicting stories about what went on with him, but I'm fairly certain that it had to do with him being gifted and people just not understanding it and maybe him not able to handle it. But even since then, before I was born, my grandmother told my mother that she knew that I was going to be a girl and what I was going to look like and everything. Like she had my coloring down like that. And my mom, she would never call herself a psychic or a medium, but I totally know that she is because she has these really crazy, cool experiences and has her whole life. But she's one of those people she's very much a skeptic, and she's always like saying to me things like, do you really think that you're a psychic? Because I don't know about that. Maybe you're just really good at just reading people. I'm like, well, that kind of the same, but then my dad, he is like a legit actual medium, and he's never called himself that. And I don't even know if to this day he would call himself that, but he's just had these experiences his whole life.
Wow.
When he was a young man, a spirit came to him and told him that he was going to have a daughter that was going to have extra abilities. And then when his father passed away, my grandfather visited my dad and told my dad what to tell my grandmother so that she could handle the death better.
Wow.
I don't know if I said that very well, but
Yeah.
but she was, and I remember being there. We were all in her living room, and she's like 100% Italian, like off the boat kind of. The family came over through Ellis Island and that whole thing. And I just love her to death. So, normally she's like up and like making everybody these grand feasts of lasagna and what have you. And it's just amazing. And she was so distraught. She was just sitting in the car not in the car, in the chair. And she was crying and wailing and going on and on about how she didn't want to live anymore. And she wanted to throw herself in the grave and all this stuff. And my dad got this message from his father, and like an automaton, went over to my grandmother, whispered into her ear what my grandfather told him. She instantly stopped crying, became calm, got up, went into the kitchen and started to cook, which is her normal default self, right? To this day, he has no memory of what that message was. Wow. It was delivered to him and then instantly gone, because it wasn't for him. It was meant for her. And he had told me that
that's like borderline trance.
Exactly. That is. Yeah. That's totally trance. Yeah. And what's weird is, like, I didn't know this for most of my life. Okay. And it's just something that he kept to himself. And yet he had multiple experiences like this. Like, there was another time when he went to my stepmom, who is now on the other side as well. But they had gone to a cemetery to visit one of her parents' gravestones. And she couldn't remember where it was. So they were kind of like wandering aimlessly. And then all of a sudden, he heard someone calling, "Rob, Rob, over here." So he followed the voice, and it led him straight to the grave site. And so anyway, these things happened. Then he never told me about, right? Or if he did, they weren't told in such a way that clicked with me at all.
Absolutely.
And then when my stepmom sadly passed away of cancer a few years ago, I immediately hopped on a plane and flew out to Florida to visit my dad and, take care of him. And this weird thing, though, had started to happen with me, where every night when I would try to go to sleep, I would hear her voice. And it was like clear as day, as if she was squatting down besides my bed and like whispering in my ear, but in my head. Like, it wasn't outside my head, it was in my head. Anyway, she kept trying to talk to me, and every night I'd be like, well, I don't understand. Like, what do you want me to do with this? I don't get it. What am I supposed to say? So anyway, I visit my dad, and we get into the car. We're still at the airport, and we're at the car, and all of a sudden something comes over me. And I'm like, "Dad, I have to tell you something, and I hope it's okay. It's super weird, but Carolyn's been visiting me, and I have to share with you what she's been telling me." And the next thing I remember, I black out. I know that I was talking. I know I was sharing something with him. I know he was receiving it. And then the next thing I remember, it was kind of like waking up, like literally in the middle of talking to him. It's like I woke up, and then I was like, "Wait, what just happened?" And he was like, "You just gave me a message from Carolyn." And I was like, I have no idea what I just said to you. I have no idea what I've just been talking about. And he's like, "That's okay. It wasn't for you. It was for me." And he was like, "Thank you so much." And he started crying, and he gave me a hug. And now he's the Marine. Like, he doesn't cry, And
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did he happen to comment if you took on that voice and that personality of her while giving that message, or was it just matter of fact as you talking?
I think it was a little bit me and a little bit her at the same time. There's something about the cadence of my speech, I think, was more her. Mm-hmm. But yet still me, if that makes sense.
Were you carrying anything personal of hers at the time?
Oh, that's I think I might have been wearing jewelry. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking, you and I are going to, maybe if we have time before the show's over, we're both big horror movie fans. We might talk a little bit about that, but I'm thinking of a movie I just saw. Well, I went to the theater to see it, but it was on again last night late. I'm up all night working. Was What Lies Beneath, and she's got the girl's hair braid that she took from her home, and then she, without even expecting it to happen, she for a moment gets taken over, jumped by the woman's spirit, and has that interaction with her husband, which jogs the memory of the affair that her husband had and that she witnessed it, and then that caused her to go out on that rainy night and have the car accident, but she had forgotten that. So I
Right.
think of that, and I bet you that had something to do with it too. Plus, you guys were so close. But
Exactly.
having the jewelry and having the personal items, and I find that happens to me a lot too. If I'm, uh, now that I think about it, well, I don't want to get too in it because I'll get emotional and stuff, but I hear a lot of things from family that's not no longer with me, and later I'll realize I'm wearing that shirt, or I'm wearing that ring, or that watch, or the necklace. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and that's psychometry, as I'm sure you know, or clairtangency, and it's one of the, like, I have all the clairs. I'm one of those weirdos that somehow got blessed with all the damn clairs. And so yeah, so I can touch things and get impressions, and
I got a new nickname for you.
yeah.
Melissa Claire Saint-Hilaire.
There we go. It's true. It's true. But yeah, that's a real thing that really happens. And I've taught, I also teach psychic development, and I've had classes where I've had the students bring in things, and I'll bring in things, and I'll put like a big bucket in the middle, and everybody pulls something out, and we take turns holding and expressing, whatever we're picking up on from the thing. And it's amazing to see how accurate people can get from that. It's
Yeah.
really a testament, I think, to energy, and the fact that, like, an inanimate object can hold or retain the energy of all of the people beforehand that handle it. And it's especially strong with something that you wear. I've noticed, like for example, if you try to read a set of keys, that can be kind of difficult, because keys are like, they get handled so many times. But I think, like, things that you wear, can really, really retain a person's energy.
We do have a question for you on here from April Mueller. I hope I said your name correctly, April. Hi. Thanks for the question. It says, the only experience I ever had anywhere close to that is one time when witnessing to someone about Jesus, and I have no idea what I said when the conversation was done.
Wow.
Yeah, I hear that more and more. Yeah, the trance thing, it's one thing to be a trance medium, and then some of them develop these relationships with these all their life with the one or two spirit guide that they
Right.
trust to allow to take over their vessel and come through.
Right.
But when they're randomly jumped and they don't really have a say so, that can be scary too.
Yeah, for sure. I actually really don't like being a trance medium. I know that I can do it, but I actively fight it in seances, because I want to.
That's scary.
It is. It's scary. It's uncomfortable.
Oh my gosh, what do we got here? We're at a little over 10 minutes left. Let me see if I've a couple of more questions from your fans so they don't send me hate mail later. Oh my gosh, some of them I've already asked you. You know what? A lot of these I already asked you. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you we talked a little bit about our crystal balls earlier. Let's talk about, are you a believer in ghosts?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
I ask you simply to just, so we clear the air on that. I have people in my own field that don't believe in ghosts. It's either demons or angels.
Right.
But having many, many years in paranormal investigating, I'm a big believer in ghosts too. I do believe they exist. Do I believe I've been tricked a time or two and had the demonic make me believe it was a spirit when it was truly something different? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You are going to probably, you talked about buying, I read somewhere you bought some equipment.
Yeah.
And you're going to be doing some ghost hunting, maybe put together a team of all I would love to see a team of all witches that were psychic mediums and paranormal investigators. That would be really, really cool. I don't know of one that's out there. But what do you like as far? I know you're not a big fan. Were you the one I read is not a big fan of the ghost box?
Actually, well, the spirit box, yeah. Well, what's funny is I used to not be a fan of any electronic gadgets. I used to be, because my expertise is Victorian seances, so I do table tippings and things like that. And so I for the longest time, I would use like dowsing rods and things like that, pendulums, anything that could have been used at that time. But then I was invited to a seance for this guy, his name, why am I blanking on his name? Ryan Singer. And he had a spirit box. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. I mean, it was a little unnerving, I will say. There was something kind of, I want to say, extra eerie about it, which is weird coming from a person who is regularly talking to ghosts. Like, all of this is eerie. But there was something maybe eerie, unnerving, because like the notion of it, like we would ask it questions and, and how it scrolls through the radio stations to answer for you. And at one point they had asked, they had asked the spirit, like, who are you here for? And the box, like clear as day, said Melissa. And it was chills, like my whole body was like, bing, So like, I'm changed now. I didn't like them. Now I do. I'm a new person.
I come and go on all the difference. I still, when push comes to shove, I still like, I'm a still photographer guy. I will do some filming. My wife's very old school. She's also very sensitive to spirits, so she'll carry around, the dowsing rods, and she's fine with that, or just telling me what she's feeling when we're working cases. I always remember, I think probably one of the biggest reasons why I have friends who are witches was they came through for me in a big way once upon a time. My wife is a survivor of an extreme demonic attack, and that really launched me on the path to become ordained. And my gift of discernment is that I can see and hear demons. And that seems to come when I need it most, usually on cases, really ugly cases. So I've gotten my share of, I call them paranormal drive-bys. A lot of people in the industry call them recon blasts, where I already know my phone's going to ring in a day or two with a bad case because I'm already getting activity in my home that's not like the usual spirits that are here in visitation. It's something different, and it's kind of like throws up red flags. My spidey senses go up, and I know, okay, it is what it is. But there was a time where I was getting these paranormal drive-bys that were so different and scary, but much different than what I was used to. And I had a psychic medium reach out to me and told me, and then lo and behold, when I researched it, I found it to be true. She said, you have ancestry where some of your ancestors were big in the witch hunts, especially in Europe. And you have a pissed off spirit of a witch that has basically attached to your bloodline, and sort of like a transgenerational curse, so to speak. And, I didn't know how to break that. It was like one person said, well, you can't go back to when the deal was done. So you just basically have to deal with it. Well, I reached out to some witches, and I don't know what they did, but it stopped when I reached out to them for help and said, I'm doing my share of praying and cleansing and blessing of my home and property, and apologizing to this person. It didn't help. And I run into spirits all the time that back in the day, they've been in the spirit world from like the beginning of time. And when they were alive, they didn't have any fear of God. So they don't have fear of God on the spirit world. So anytime I approach them from that angle, it makes it even worse. But I don't know what these witches did. If you can add a, give an opinion on that, but whatever they did, all of a sudden those drive-bys completely stopped.
It could be a number of things. There are so many different traditions. I wish I would know very specifically what they did.
They're very tight-lipped about a lot of that stuff.
They really are. And even in the traditions that I've been taught in, I haven't been taught everything. I've been taught bits and a lot of stuff, but I know there's a lot of esoteric knowledge that has not been passed on yet, But I'm seeing a question pop up.
Sarah Martins. Hi, Sarah. She says, has anyone ever wanted to nope out of a seance?
Oh yes, all that this is the thing that happens for sure.
Like
And
before, during, or out, or like near the
all the
end?
above. Like I've had some people who've said they definitely want, they're like, yes, I want to come, I want to be a part of it, and then they never show up, so they don't even come to it. Then I've had people in the middle of a seance just need to get up and like leave the room for a little bit. And it can be for a number of different reasons. It can be, just like, so I do this table tipping thing, and it rarely ever actually physically tips, but what ends up happening is the center of the table, a knocking will occur. And it's so eerie and it's so weird. And I've had multiple people try to debunk it and examine the table and try to figure out where the knocking comes from. And it's literally like there's a center, it's an old Victorian, a reproduction Victorian wine table. So there's like a center column. And where the knocking occurs is right in the center of that. So no hand could even get there. And we've tried to recreate it just by pushing or holding on the table, and it won't recreate it. So that's actually caused people to just be like, I'm out, One time I had something occur. We were sort of, I think we were in the process of sort of like winding down the evening anyway. And I believe we had moved from one room to the other because I had actually 2 seance tables set up for 2 different types of seances. And we moved to the other room for the other type of seance. And there's this one spirit that hangs out in my house, and he's a trickster, and his name is Carlos. And it's people who know me will know exactly who the Carlos is that I'm talking about.
Hi, Carlos.
And I'm like trying not to invoke him because he'll like make the computer turn off. But so we're in the other room, and he showed up, and back in the first room, we hear a crash, and I had this little bottle of lavender, and it was on a counter, and it was pushed way, it was like deep in the counter, and somehow it just flung across the counter and smashed on the floor. And none of my cats were around, and they couldn't have even moved it the way that it had moved. They would have had to actually pick it up and throw it. And when that happened, it was kind of like, boop, okay. Everybody noped out of that seance. We were done.
Yeah, I don't blame them. Well, I know a question I have to ask before we're done, and we're almost done. A favorite horror movie, because I know you're a big horror movie fan.
Yes. Oh gosh, to pick a favorite, that is.
I know I can't either. But you know
what pops into my head, like without even thinking, what popped into my head was The Conjuring.
Phenomenal, and you can't beat. I was very depressed when I heard about, after the film first came out, it was so huge, people had snuck onto that land and they desecrated Bathsheba's gravesite. So first of all, you already got a pissed off witch that's there in spirit, and you're going to desecrate her gravesite. I would just not. That's not in my being to even think about doing something like that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. This isn't one of my faves, but I saw a picture of you in Venice, and I thought of this movie. And if you've already seen it before, I'm going to be bummed out. Have you seen, when was it made? It was made in 1973. It's called Don't Look Now, with Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie.
Gosh, I don't think I've seen it. I think I have to, though.
You have to. When the movie first came out, very controversial, because there's even for today's standard, a pretty heavy sex scene between Sutherland and Julie Christie in the beginning of the movie, and it was very controversial at this time. But the movie is they're married. It starts with the drowning death of their young daughter. So now they're both so extremely distraught, and he's an architect, if I remember correctly, and he gets offered a job in Venice to refurbish and fix her up an old ancient church. So they decide this would be good for us. They go to Venice together. Now, while they're there, the wife starts to think that their daughter is coming to her in spirit to give them a message and warn them about something. So she ends up running into this blind psychic and having sessions with her to contact her daughter. Throw in how creepy Venice can be at night. Throw in the other twist that there happens to be a serial killer roaming the Venice streets at night. You would love that movie, especially since I saw you in Venice. You looked like you were having a great time. When you were there, were you able? Do you know about the island of La Provelia?
I don't know about no, I don't know about that at all.
Well, next time you go, if you get back to Venice, there's a. I don't know if you can even get to it anymore. There was a time where, if you knew somebody, you could make arrangements to go out there. There's one port in Venice where you can actually see the island off in the distance. It's
Mm,
deserted. There's some ruins there, but it's considered to be one of the most haunted locations in all of the world. But
wow.
I think you need special permission. But I could see you and some of your witch friends and a paranormal team going out there doing an investigation and filming that. That would be pretty off the charts.
That
So,
sounds
but
awesome.
don't look now. 1973, Donald Sutherland, Julie Christie. I think you'll love the movie. It speaks all about American Witch. It's got you written all over it. I think it's just right up your alley.
Awesome.
But
I
oh
have
my gosh, it's 6:01. Is there
yeah,
anything
six.
any parting message of love and light or anything you want to throw out there to your followers or friends or my viewers that um, anything that you think you're feeling the spirits moving you feel you want to say to us?
Yeah, okay. Well, what can I say? Well, I think I want to say you're not alone. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. There's and it's not just that there's other people around us because there are, and there's so many of us are going through similar things, so there's always someone out there who will understand what you're going through, but we're also not alone because we all have spirit guides. And my one grandmother would call them guardian angels. Everyone has, my witches will call them familiars. Everybody has a different name, but there are beings around us that are here to guide us and protect us, and we can tune into them. And it's one of the things that I like to teach in my classes is I truly believe that everybody has psychic and mediumship abilities. I really do. And I know that there are people who are not going to agree with me, and that's okay. But one of my gifts is to help pull this out of people and help them experience it. And yeah, so I don't know. I think everyone has a spirit guide, and it's someone that we can turn to for help whenever we need it.
Well, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for spending an hour out of your busy Sunday afternoon to hang out with me and my viewers. I love you. I respect you. You're on the prayer list. Oh, you'll remain there. We got to do this again, maybe around Halloween time or shortly thereafter, because I know every guest like you that I have on, I just get one message after another. When's she coming back? When's she coming back? So I hope you had fun and that you will come back. But most importantly, you're a breath of fresh air for the paranormal
Mhm.
community. Don't change. And thank you so much for being here. And I hope you have a wonderful remainder of your Sunday evening. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on. This was so much fun. I love this. So I would be totally happy to come back at any time.
You got it. You have a great evening. Okay.
Thanks, you too.
Good night, Melissa.
Bye.
Brothers and sisters, she'll be back. I'll try my darndest to get her back. That's the one and only Melissa Claire Saint-Hilaire. Do you like that one? I'll see if it sticks. Who's my guest next Sunday? The one and only Reverend Jared Scavone, host of Love, Light, and the Paranormal on KCOR. Nice guy. I love him. You guys are going to love him too. On that note, thank you all for being here. I don't have a show without all of you. Thank you, Carl Albertson, for all your hard work in the chat and behind the scenes producing my show. Guys, stay blessed. Stop the violence. Have a blessed week till I see you all next Sunday. Until then, good night, Harold. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. God bless you all. Good night, everybody.